Good day all. I hope you all are safe and sound. Today is my lecture number 45, which is based on the practical aspects in which or in an event of an Ecdis failure, what action shall be taken by the master. As we speak and as we know today, of course, as I have reiterated umpteen number of times, that electronic navigational aids or electronic means of navigation, definitely it certainly is, and most certainly is a boon towards the safety of navigation. However, in case of failure of any of these equipment, especially in this case, what I have or what I will be talking about in case of or in event of an Ecdis failure, what action shall be taken by the master, which shall be construed well with a proper conceptual knowledge. So it gave me a lot of thinking and also a food for thought that, many a times we are not prepared for emergency contingency measures or eventualities pertaining to that. Therefore, this particular lecture is certainly, I believe, mainly the masters may find it very helpful. That is, in case they come into a catastrophical situation, where, of course, I have given a little bit of hypothetical perspective also that all the Ecdis, all the electronic Ecdis, I'm just talking about the Ecdis, in case of that, if it fails, and at that point in time, if the vessel is en route and also en route towards her destination, and also the vessel is in a coastal passage, what actions shall be taken by the master? So, I repeat again under the banner of my banner of Marine Quest Solutions, lecture number 45, action in event of an Ecdis failure, and by master during the coastal passage, what actions will he or should he take? When I say so, I'm not a walking encyclopedia, but I'm just trying to give you my practical, pragmatic purview with my experience. I hope it should be taken in a positive stride and construed accordingly. Thank you. So we proceed. Now, I will talk about first what all are the modalities. So actions to be taken by the master in event of complete Ecdis shutdown / failure of Ecdis, and at the same time, if the vessel does not have any paper charts on board, especially during the coastal passage. So you will understand that now I've brought you all guys with this situation to ground zero, where you have an Ecdis failure, complete shutdown, maybe you had a blackout and then the Ecdis could not cope up, and you have two Ecdis, one is master, one is slave, and many a times you have another third repeater or Ecdis. The hypothetical situation what I'm taking, that all the Ecdis have failed. However, we have 100% redundancy, we have a backup from UPS for the Ecdis, all that is there, but I'm taking a hypothetical situation for a brainstorming session to train the masters in particular, that what action shall or should the master take in case of a complete shutdown of Ecdis or Ecdis failure, where the vessel does not even possesses or has the paper chart on board. So what should the master do? And the vessel is in the, especially the vessel is in the coastal passage. So we proceed with this, what I have jotted down, and then I've also shown on a pictorial display as well. So in this new era of having facilitation of electronic navigational aids, unfortunately, upon malfunction of any of the electronic aids, the mariner feels helpless due to their over-reliance upon electronic navigational aids, which is shadowed by a complete devoid of the practical knowledge of the seamanship. So what I'm coming over here for is to highlight that how we should utilize our practical knowledge of seamanship. Because when we talk about egg disc and most of the bridge equipment, of course, barring magnetic compass, they are construed as aids to navigation. So what in this particular case, I've taken electronic aid to navigation like Ecdis, of course, which is approved as per SEQ and as per class. What if all the Ecdis fails and the vessel is in the coastal passage and the vessel does not have the required or passage paper charts? What should the vessel or the master do? So that is the reason I will highlight this particular point again, read it again. The mariners feel completely basically helpless due to their over-reliance upon electronic navigational aids, which is shadowed by a complete devoid of practical knowledge of the seamanship. Furthermore, most of the incidents as far as the collision, grounding, ramming of the vessels are taking place are as far as or due to their over-reliance of masters, master and navigational officers upon the electronic navigational aids as far as that is concerned. I'll read this point again just to make sure that we are on the same page. Most of the incidents as far as the collision, groundings, ramming of the vessels are concerned are taking place as far as or due to the over-reliance of the master and the navigational officers upon the electronic aids to navigation. In other words, basically the thing is that our mariners are so much focused on electronic aids to navigation that we forget our natural or practical instinct that what shall we do. That is the point I'm trying to bring it home to all the mariners. Next slide we go. Now in this case, the example given here is to solely explain and appraise the master with emergency contingency measures which should be taken in event of complete Ecdis failure and when the vessel en route towards her destination does not have any paper charts on board, which I have already narrated in my previous slides. Now the situation I have taken in this case that the subject vessel is proceeding on an easterly course. She is en route towards her destination on a course of 090 and 12 knots is the speed, and the distance of the nearest land in this case is 24 nautical miles. In other words, she is on a coastal passage, traversing through an innocent passage towards her destination. The vessel transiting in a high traffic density area, that is the condition I've put in, and in fair to good visibility. So the visibility is fair to good, but you are in a high traffic density area as how it is normally there in the coastal passage. Environmental factors. Visibility, what I described, fair to good. Wind, easterly, Beaufort force 5, moderate seas, and current easterly. Current is, let's say, slight to moderate. I've not mentioned because here I'm not talking about the chart work or other things. I'm talking about the practical aspects of seamanship, particularly as far as the master is concerned. Action by the master in event of a complete Ecdis failure. Once the duty officer has notified the master, that is, of course, if you have an Ecdis failure, not necessarily that master is on the bridge at that point in time because she is 24 nautical miles off and she's in a coastal passage and the duty officer is carrying out diligently the coastal navigation. So once the duty officer has notified the master, what is the action shall be taken? First, reduce the speed to bare minimum / stop main engine. Now, why I said that? Because once you have a complete shutdown of Ecdis, you don't have a paper chart. Basically, from a master or a navigation point of view, you become completely blind. But how to persevere in these tenacious circumstances? That's what I'm talking about. So what action shall we take? First and foremost, what has happened, I've described. Broadcast a navigational warning, notify all the traffic in the vicinity and in particular monitor and check the movements of the traffic above the beam. Of course, we reduce the speed and then we stop the engine. At the same time, simultaneously, we broadcast a navigational warning to appraise all the traffic in the vicinity and in particular the traffic above the beam behind us. Why? That we'll see as we go down the slide. Notify VTS port control as applicable. So we need to notify VTS and port control if there is a VTS governed area and or the port control, whatever is applicable. Exercise caution and turn the vessel around on the reciprocal course. And that is what I said in the first point, in the point number 2, that broadcast a navigational warning and you must have a complete appraisal of the traffic in your vicinity and in particular the traffic above your beam. And in point number 4, I have mentioned exercise caution, turn the vessel around on a reciprocal course. So if you want to turn to starboard, make sure nothing is above your beam. If there's a vessel which is probably overtaking you, since you have reduced the speed and stopped her, wait for her to overtake. Make sure nothing is there onto your starboard quarter or above your beam, and then you take a turn. U-turn, that is on a reciprocal course. Now, why did I say reciprocal course? There are different schools, schools of thought, but here I'm giving you practical, pragmatic experience what I would do with my X number of command experience. Because reciprocal course, when I say, why did I say, is because you have or the vessel has already traversed through that area. The vessel has already traversed through that area and that's where she had the Ecdis failure. So, and you cannot go forward because principally speaking, you cannot, of course, you may have a little bit something in your memory that, okay, until about 12 nautical miles, you are clear. But what if something happens? So the safest possible action which shall be taken by the master is after notification to VTS, traffic and broadcasting navigational warning is to turn the vessel around as safely as possible onto a reciprocal course. The other modalities, once we have turned to the reciprocal course, we'll talk about as we go down the slide. So, I repeat this point, exercise caution, turn the vessel around on a reciprocal course. Proceed on the reciprocal course at slow speed, bare minimum speed to hold the steerage on the reciprocal course. Now, in this situation, we have got a Ecdis failure. The vessel was en route prior to that, and as for point number 4, I said exercise caution, due diligence, turn the vessel around onto a reciprocal course, port or starboard side, whichever side the master feels comfortable or whatever he finds is good as far as his situational awareness is concerned. So once the vessel is turned around onto the reciprocal course, you must reduce or proceed at bare minimum speed in order to hold your head once you have turned around on the reciprocal course, because at this point in time, because as I said earlier that you have already traversed through that passage, you know nothing happened to you before the Ecdis failure. So obviously you're safe enough to take a U-turn and turn around. So slow speed, I said, basically you are killing the time. You're not proceeding at full speed. You're at maybe a little below dead slow head as far as the engine parameters permit you. So the most slowest speed just to hold your head. That's what I mentioned. Point number 6. Vessel's waypoint route plan fed in the Ecdis fed in the GPS. Sorry, I correct myself. Vessel's waypoint route plan fed in the GPS. Same is reflected on the radar, linked to the GPS and the safety margin, that is the cross track. Now we all know that in today's scenario, most of the time, I would say at least 90% of the times, the Ecdis are, of course, linked with the GPS, and you can have, a replication of your route plan provided it is fed in the GPS as far as the waypoints are concerned. So when you're turning around, when you talk about your turning circle or you're turning around, you have a safety margin of cross track. So you will be able to approximately turn around when you're taking a U-turn on the reciprocal course within a cross track area of at least, For a bigger vessel, you may draw 1 mile on port, 1 mile on starboard. For a smaller vessel, you may draw around 6 to 8 cables. So that is sufficient enough for you to turn around. And mind you, you have reduced the speed. You are turning around on the reciprocal course, and gradually, once you turn around on your reciprocal course, you have your track on the GPS track on the radar, so you can bring her back on the course, and you're well within the cross track errors. As when I discussed with some of my colleagues, they had this apprehension. So this is the recourse what we should take. That when we turn around, okay, vessel's turning circles, turning circle is there. You're turning around at a slower speed, and you try to maintain as far as practicable the vessel within your cross track. And prior to that, I said your route plan has been fed into the GPS as far as the waypoints are concerned. That will be reflected. So now you'll have to come back onto your radar, which is linked to the GPS, and you have a track, and you are maintaining the vessel within the cross track of the vessel of your passage plan. Next, point number 7, notify the office marine superintendent and try to procure the scanned copy of navigational charts for the area over the email. So, what we have done in case of Ecdis failure, let me repeat the whole thing. We reduced the speed, we broadcasted the navigational warning, we stopped the main engine. Once we found all the traffic clear for us to turn around, especially no traffic above the beam, we have turned around, and same time we are using the radar, for which the waypoints have been fed and it is reflected on radar. If not, we can plot it manually also, the waypoints, and go back onto the reciprocal course and maintain the vessel well within the cross track area, because your radar is working, your GPS is working. It's only your Ecdis is not working. Your gyro is working, everything is working except the Ecdis. This is the assumption which has been taken into this particular case. So I repeat point number 7 again, notify the office, because now you've taken all the immediate actions. Now you need to notify your marine superintendent or your office and try to procure the scanned copy of navigational charts for the area over the email. Now, once you've done that, point number 8, carry out the troubleshoot for the Ecdis as per the manual and in consultation with the manufacturers with the office assistance. So, we have done all the immediate actions. We have notified the marine superintendent. We have asked him to please try to send us the scanned copy of the charts over the email ASAP. In the meantime, we are proceeding en route on the reciprocal course at the bare minimum speed to hold the steerage, to hold our head, and of course the vessel is on hand steering. Whilst all this is happening, so we know that we have brought the vessel into the safe haven by coming to the reciprocal course, coming back onto a reciprocal waypoints plotted on the radar, which is linked through the GPS after the waypoints have been fed. Now we are proceeding, in a safe waters, because when we came from that area, nothing happened to the vessel. So there was no shoal, no reef, nothing, below the keel. So we are all safe. Now, in the meantime, once we have done this, carry out the troubleshoot for the Ecdis as far as the manual of the Ecdis in consultation with the manufacturer through the assistance from the company. Point number 9. Whilst proceeding on the reciprocal course, besides exercising due diligence and prudence towards the safety of navigation, monitor the soundings very closely. Now, why I said that, there's a reason. One is, of course, we need to carry out the monitoring of the sounding. That is, of course. But there's another reason to that, which I'll show you, which will be there in the next points. Once the vessel is within the anchoring depths, that is the reason I said you must monitor the soundings very closely. And once your vessel comes within the anchoring depths, seek the permission from the VTS and port control and anchor the vessel as safely as possible. Of course, this I leave it to the jurisdiction of master, of course, but the first things what we need to carry out as far as the procedural things are concerned towards the safety of navigation, we need to notify the port control or VTS as applicable and exercise due diligence and anchor the vessel if permitted by the VTS and the port control. whilst we are on the reciprocal course and proceeding at the slowest speed to maintain the steerage. Point number 11. Once if the vessel is anchored on the reciprocal course, notify port control, VTS and broadcast navigational warning in at regular intervals. So if we have anchored, we found this, I leave it to the master's jurisdiction. If the vessel is well within the anchoring depth and vessel has dropped the anchor, prior to that, the master has carried out the notification to the VTS and port control. Once you're anchored, at regular interval, broadcast a navigational warning. Because this thing, what I discussed or explained to you in point number 10, this is a kind of a, force majeure situation where it's not in the control of master, but he has exercised prudence and due diligence as far as the situation is concerned, provided the master and the duty officers do have the situational awareness as well. So, once the vessel is anchored, that is in safe haven, on a reciprocal course, notify the port control, VTS, and broadcast a navigational warning at regular interval, because the situation I gave you, the vessel is in high traffic density area. So, just to appraise all the traffic, and the visibility, what I mentioned in the situation, is fair to good. Comply with call regs and display day and night signal or sound signal as applicable accordingly. In case fog, you comply with rule number 34, etc. So that is from the call regs point of view. Now, wait at the anchor as feasible at master's discretion. That is whilst proceeding at a slow speed on a reciprocal course, until such time the Ecdis troubleshoot is restored. Either the Ecdis troubleshoot is restored, you've brought the Ecdis online, and by such time the marine superintendent or the office is giving you backup to sending you the scanned copies of your navigation chart for that area. So you stay put, either proceed at a very slow speed, what I said earlier, and if the master finds it's conducive to anchor within the anchoring depth, do anchor. And by such time, you have already mobilized all your resources. You've notified the VTS, you've notified the traffic, you've notified the office, you have taken a correct action by turning around on the reciprocal course. And at the same time, office is already mobilized. I'm taking this perception into account that, you have day or night difference. That is, you are in the daylight hours and your office is at night. So obviously, they'll take some time, 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour. 3 hour is a bit too much because this is an emergency. So within 1 or 2 hours time, or maybe within 3 hours time, you will have the navigational charts. That is the scanned copy of navigational charts. So at the most, what you have to maneuver the vessel on a reciprocal course is basically maximum 3 or 4 hours if there's a delay or any other unforeseen circumstances. I would take maximum 4 to 5 hours. You may be there. If you anchor, you may be anchoring as per master's discretion within, as soon as possible when the master is comfortable and he finds that, okay, the vessel is well within the anchoring depths, anchor. Or if you cannot anchor, keep proceeding at slow speed. Within span of few hours, you will have the paper charts scanned from the office, and then you can turn around and back onto your course. Till such time, you also carry out the backup plan of troubleshoot of Ecdis in consultation with the manufacturer or the technician who would do it. In case not, in case some spare parts are required, then you still have the paper charts to navigate. But the critical aspect is, what should you do immediately in case of an Ecdis failure? So I've already, in a chronological order, described or narrated the points, with exercising due diligence towards and prudence towards the safety of navigation, that what factually the master should do. And mind you, all these things, what I'm narrating, you will not find it in any book or publication. This is what it comes from, the practical knowledge of seamanship and with practical experience of master or the person who is trying to explain this particular subject matter. So I repeat point number 13, wait at the anchor as feasible. This is master's discretion, or proceed at slow speed on the reciprocal course, whichever is master finds convenient or comfortable with, until such time the Ecdis troubleshoot is restored or the vessel has procured up-to-date corrected charts for the voyage from the company over the email. Now let's see the pictorial thing what I've discussed, that this is the coast, and the nearest land is 24 nautical miles, what I mentioned here, and this is the place where the Ecdis failure took place. So you nice and easy turn around onto the reciprocal course as depicted over here with the red colored vessel, and of course you again, I'm repeating myself, you have GPS working, you have your radars working, you have fed the waypoints on the GPS, which is a due diligence or which is a practice shall be exercised by all the masters and the second officers, and you have a course which you are supposed to share, like in this case 090, so reciprocal course will be 270. You come back onto your 270 course as what I've described with all the modalities, and keeping the vessel well within the cross track area, and then anchor if the soundings are favorable. This I'll leave it to the master, but yes, if possible and if it is favorable and if it is in concurrence with the VTS and the coastal state, drop the anchor. If they say no, you are still proceeding at a very slow speed, and it's within few hours you'll get all the data. Either you will be able to restore the Ecdis, God willing. If not, backup plan is your company, your marine superintendent is trying to procure the charts immediately online, because this is a kind of a force majeure. But the idea is the emergency contingency measures, what the master should exercise, what master should take. My objective for this particular lecture was to basically appraise the masters as far as the emergency preparedness and emergency contingency planning is concerned. Please do let me know how did you find this, because this particular lecture I broadcast out of the box. And when I say so, you will not get this kind of action what I've narrated in last half an hour's time. You may not get this, but this is practical and pragmatic experience I'm sharing with you. However, saying so, of course, unfortunately, it certainly is, not a very good sign when all mariners, most of the mariners, I must correct myself, not all, most of the mariners are hell-bent upon and very much over-reliant upon the electronic aids of navigation without having any clue, any knowledge that what would they do in case of failure of any or all of these equipment. That is the plan B, which comes with your practical knowledge of the seamanship. I thank you all for granting me all this support, and do let me know how did you find this particular lecture, in order for me to broadcast more of these kind of situations on a practical basis based on practical and pragmatic experience. Thank you very much. Good day. Stay safe.